In today's session, we're going to continue on the implementation process of achieving breakthrough improvement. And at this point in the process, we should see a stable and capable delivery system. We should see sales increasing. And we're talking about the management system in our house of operational excellence here. We've already talked about sustainability and decision making, and now we're going to talk about profitable growth opportunities. So when we look at opportunities in the market or existing opportunities that we were working on, we want to tie those opportunities to our performance metrics. So again, all the elements of the management system in our house of operational excellence are going to be tied to our performance metrics, our key performance indicators. And there's going to be different indicators, so each of these metrics are going to affect different elements of our system. And if we look at our profitable growth opportunities, one of the key performance indicators for that is profitability, of course, and we're going to measure that through our productivity. So what is the definition of productivity? So productivity is the throughput of the organization divided by the operating expense. So of course, if we want to increase productivity, we do that two ways, by increasing throughput or reducing operating expense. And if we can do both of those simultaneously, then our productivity is going to improve. If our productivity improves, our profitability is going to improve. So one of the myths that we see in companies is that increasing the profit margin on a product will improve company profitability. So we want to challenge that, and we want to understand what do we need to look at in terms of what elements affect profitability of the company. So two things that I learned through my career. One is from Dr. Akoff, who said the defining properties of any system are the properties of the whole, which none of its parts have. And so when I learned that, I started to look at organizations, and then I coupled that with what Dr. Goldratt taught me, is that products don't have profit margins, companies have profit margins. So the properties of a system or organization is profitability. So none of the components or work that goes through the organization have profit margins. They have contribution, but not profit margins. So how do we leverage that in the organization? So what we want to do is we want to increase the throughput rate of a product that a company will provide, and that will improve the profitability of the company. And throughput is the rate which we generate value added through sales. So two important parts here are the rate, which is the flow rate, and through sales. So building stuff and putting it into inventory doesn't help us. We got to sell it to the market. So therefore, we can improve profitability of the company by improving three variables: increasing the value added content for each product or service, increasing the flow rate of those products or services, and decreasing operating expense of the organization. So let's do a little bit deeper dive into that. So if we look at increasing throughput rate of a product that the company will produce, we want to look at the bottleneck operation or the capacity constraint resource in the organization. And if we measure the flow rate through that resource, we can determine how good are products for the company and how we can, if we improve the flow rate, how that'll improve the profitability of the company. So if we look at these different products and how they flow through there, when we look at the flow rate through that capacity constraint, then we can evaluate those opportunities. And of course, this orange product doesn't flow through the bottleneck operation, so that is a different opportunity. So we're going to look at the products that flow through the capacity constraint resource and the products that don't flow through that, and make decisions based on that flow rate through the capacity constraint resource. So therefore, we can evaluate improving these three variables. So one, increase the value added content for each product or service. So new opportunities, if we can get paid more for each of those opportunities, that's a plus. And also if we reduce the totally variable cost of those products or services. So those are the things that we buy that go into our product and service from external providers. Also, we can increase the flow rate of each product or service. So reduce the cycle time on the capacity constraint resource, or offload the work to another resource that's not the capacity constraint resource, even if the flow rate is slower to that resource, because we're opening up the capacity of the whole system. And then identify opportunities that don't flow through that and come up with a strategy on how to price those in the market. Also, decrease operating expense of the organization. So one, we don't want to cut costs too much. So our rule of thumb here is don't reduce operating expense at the expense of flow. So we can reduce operating expense, but if it starts to impact flow, don't reduce it further. So that's our session for today. Thanks for joining. We only have one more session in this series, which is change management. We'll talk about that next week. And thanks for joining the session today.